Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads and continue with Wicked. The Charmed Circle, Part 8. The industrialist of Shiz, from an early age wary of the growing power of the wizard, had elected not to lay down the rail line from Shiz to the Emerald City as originally planned. Therefore, it was a good 3 days' journey from Shiz to the Emerald City, and this was in the best of weather, for the wealthy who could pay for constant change of horses. For Glinda, it took more than a week. A bleak, cold, scoured week. So the winds of autumn ripped the leaves off the trees with a dry screech and a rattle of brittle, protesting limbs. They rested, like other third-class travelers, in the back rooms above inn kitchens. In a single lumpy bed, they huddled together for warmth and encouragement, and, Glinda told herself, protection. The ostlers cooed and shrieked in the stable yard below. The kitchen maids came and went noisily at odd hours. Glinda would start as if from a frightful dream and nestle in near to Elphaba, who seemed at night never to sleep. Daytimes, the long hours spent in poorly sprung carriages, Elphaba would nod off against Glinda's shoulder. The land outside grew less succulent and varied. Trees were crabbed, as if conserving their strength. And then the sandy scrubland was domesticated by farm life. Overgazed fields were dotted with cows, their withers shriveled and papery, their lowering desperate. An emptiness settled on the farmlands. Once Glinda saw the farm woman standing on her doorstep, hands sunk deep in apron pockets, face lined with grief and rage at the useless sky. The woman watched the carriage pass, and her face showed a yearning to be on it, to be dead, to be anywhere else than on this carcass of a property. The farms gave way to deserted mills and abandoned granges. Then, abrupt and decided, the Emerald City rose before them, a city of insistence, of blanket declaration. It made no sense, clouding up the horizon, sprouting like a mirage on the characterless plains of Central Oz. Glinda hated it from the moment she saw it. Brash upstart of a city, she supposed it was her Gillikin superiority asserting itself. She was glad of it. The carriages passed through one of the northern gates, and the scramble of a life began arouse itself again, but in an urban key less restrained and self-governing that of Shiz. The Emerald City was not amused by itself, nor did it consider amusement a proper attitude for a city. Its high self-regard sprang up in public places, ceremonial squares and parks, facade and reflecting fools. How juvenile, how devoid of irony, murmured Glinda. The pomp, the pretension. The Elphaba, who had passed through the Emerald City only once before on her way up to Shiz, had no interest in architecture. She had only her eyes glued on the people. No animals, she said. Not so you can see, anyway. Maybe they've all gone underground. Underground? Said Glinda, thinking of legendary menaces like the Gnome King and his subterranean colony, or dwarves in their mines in the Gillikin, or the time dragon of the old myths, dreaming the world of Oz from his airless tomb. In hiding, said Elphaba. Look at the poor. I mean, are they poor, the hungry of Oz, from the failed farms? Or is it just the surplus? The expendable human savage. Look at them. Glinda, this is a real question. The Quadlings have nothing. Looked more than these. Off the boulevard on which the road branched alleys, where shelves of tin and cardboard served as from the indigenous. Many of them were children, though some were of the diminutive Munchkinlanders, and some were dwarves, and some were Gillikinese bowed with hunger and strain. The carriage moved slowly, and faces stood out. A Gillikin youth with no teeth and no feet or calves on his stumpy knees in a box, begging. A Quadling. Look, a Quadling, said Elphaba, grabbing Glinda's wrist. Glinda caught a glimpse of a ruddy brown woman in a shawl, lifting an apple to the child in a sling around her neck. 3 Gillikinese girls dressed like women for hire. More than in a pack, running and squealing like piglets, pressing up against a merchant to pick his pockets. Rag urchins with push carts, kiosk keepers whose goods lay locked beneath safety grills, and a sort of civil army, if you could call it that, strolling in foursomes on every second or third street, brandishing clubs angular with swords. They paid the carriage master and walked with their parcels of clothes toward the palace. It rose, its step-back fashion, a growth of domes and minarets, high flared buttresses and green marble, blue agate screens in the recessed windows. Central and most prominent, the broad, gentle-browed canopies of the pagoda lifted over the throne room, covered with hammered scales of virgin gold, brilliant in the late afternoon. 5 days later, they made it past the gatekeeper, the receptionist, and the social secretary. They sat for hours waiting a 3-minute interview with the Commander General of Audiences. Elphaba, a hard-twisted look on her face, had managed to eject the words Madame Morble from between her clamping lips. "Tomorrow at 11, said the Commander General, you will have 4 minutes between the ambassador to fix Ix and the matron of the Ladies' Home Guard Social Nourishment Brigade. Dress code is formal." He handed them a card of regulations that, despite being unequivocally courtly dress, they were obliged to ignore. The following afternoon, everything running late, the ambassador to Ix left the throne room looking agitated and splendidic. Glinda fluffed the bedraggled feathers in her travel hat for the 80th time and sighed. "Now you're the one who says what should be said." Elphaba nodded. To Glinda, she looked tired, terrified but strong, as if her form were knit with iron whiskey instead of bones and blood. The Commander General of Audiences appeared in the doorway of the waiting saloon. "You have 4 minutes," he said. "Do not approach unless you are bade to do so. Do not speak unless you are addressed. Do not venture a remark unless it is to answer a comment or question. You may refer to the wizard as Your Highness." "That sounds pretty regal to me. I thought royalty had been..." But here Glinda elbowed Elphaba to make her shut up. Really, Elphaba had no common sense sometimes. They can come so far to be turned away because of adolescent radicalism. The Commander General took no notice. As they approached a set of tall double doors carved with sigils and other occult hieroglyphics, the Commander General mentioned, "The wizard is not in a good humor today due to the reports of a riot in the Oogaboo district in the north of Winky Country. I should prepare for what I find you, were I you." 2 stoical doormen opened the doors and they passed through. But the throne did not lie before them. Instead, the antechamber had left, and through an archway there was another, but on a shifting axis to the right, another beyond that, and another. It was like looking through a reflection of the corridor and mirror set opposite each other. It veered inward, or, thought Glinda, like processing through a narrowing and deviating chambers of a nodulus. They made a circuit through 8 or 10 salons, each slightly smaller than the other, each steeped in a curdled light that fell from the lighted panes above. At last, the antechambers concluded at an archway in a carnivorous circular hall, higher than it was wide, and dark chapel, antique wrought iron urns, antique wrought iron stands held ziggurats of molded beeswax during the multitude of wicks, and the air was close and slightly flowery. The wizard was absent, though they saw the throne on a circular dais and set emeralds gleaming daily in the candlelight. "He stepped out to use the toilet," said Elphaba. "Well, we'll wait." They stood in the archway, not daring to venture farther without invitation. "If we only have 4 minutes, I hope this doesn't count," said Glinda. "I mean, it only took us 2 minutes just to get from there to here." "At this point," said Elphaba, and then, "Shh, Glinda, shh." I don't think she heard anything, and she wasn't so sure. There was no change that she could identify to the gloom, but Elphaba looked like a pointer on alert. Her chin was out, her nose high, and nostrils fair, her dark eyes squinting and widening. "What?" said Glinda. "What?" "The sound of—" Glinda heard no sounds, unless it was the hot air lifting from the flames into the chilly shadow windows between dark rafters, or was the rustle of silk robes. Was the wizard approaching? She looked this way and that. No, there was no rustle, a sort of hiss, as of bacon rashers in a skillet. The candle flame suddenly all genuflected, obscene to a sour wind that beat from the area of the throne. Then the dais was pelted with thick drops of rain, and a shudder of homegrown thunder blatted out. More kitchen kettles than timpani. On the throne was a skeleton of dancing lights. At first, Glinda thought lightning, but then she realized it was the luminescent bones hitched together to suggest something vaguely human, or at least mammalian. The cage reflexed like the two fretted hands, and a voice spoke in the storm, not from the skull, but from the dark eye of the storm, where the heart of the lightning creature should be terrible, in the tabernacle of the ribcage. "I am Oz, the great and terrible," it said, and shook the room with its related weather. "Who are you?" Glinda glanced at Elphaba. "Go on, Elfie," she said, nudging her, but Elphaba looked terrified. "Well, of course the rain," she said that one thing about thunderstorms. "Who are you?" bellowed the thing, the Wizard of Oz, whatever. "Elfie," hissed Glinda. Then, "Oh, you useless thing, I'll talk and know. I'm Glinda from Frodica, if you please, your highness, descended from the Arduennas of the upland, and that is, if you please, the Elphaba, the Throckthur descending from Nest Hardings, if you please." "And if I don't please?" said the wizard. "Oh, how like a child," said Glinda under her breath. "Elfie, come on, I can say why we're here." But the banal comment of the wizard seemed to snap Elphaba out of terror. Staying where she was at the edge of the room, gripping Glinda's hand for support, Elphaba said, "We're students of Madame Morble's at Crage Hall and Shits, your highness, and we're in possession of some vital information." "We are?" said Glinda. "Thanks for telling me." The small rain seemed to let up a bit, though the room stayed dark at an eclipse. "Madame Morrible, the paragon of paradoxes," said the wizard. "Vital information of her, I wonder?" "No," said Elphaba. "That is not for the interpreters that what we hear. Gossip is unreliable, but—" "Gossip is instructive," said the wizard. "It tells which way the wind is blowing." The wind that blew in the direction of the girls, and Elphaba danced to avoid being spattered. "Go ahead, girls. Gossip." "No," said Elphaba. "We're here on important business." "Elfie," said Glinda, "do you want to get us thrown in prison?" "Who are you to decide what is important business?" roared the wizard. "I keep my eyes open," said Elphaba. "You didn't call us here to ask for a gossip. We came with our own agenda." "How do you know I didn't call you here?" Well, they didn't know, especially after whatever it was happened to them at tea with Madame Morrible. "Scale down, Elfie," whispered Glinda. "You're making him mad." "So what?" Elphaba said. "I'm mad." She spoke up again. "I have news of the murder of a great scientist and a great thinker, your highness. I have news of important discoveries that he was making and their suppression. I have every inch in the pursuit of justice, and I know how you do too, so that the amazing revelations of Dr. Dillman will help you reverse your recent judgments on the rights of animals." "Dr. Dillman," said the wizard. "Is that what this is all about?" "It's about an entire population of animals systematically deprived of their—" "I know Dr. Dillman, and I know of his work," said the glowing bones of the wizard, snorting. "Derivative, unauthenticated, specious garbage. What do you expect of an academic animal? Predicted on shaky political notions. Empirism, quackery, tomfoolery, cant, rant, and rhetoric. Were you taken in perhaps by his enthusiasm, his animal passion?" The skeleton danced a jig, or perhaps it was a twitch of disgust. "I know of his interest in his findings. I know little of what you call his murder, and I could care less." I am not a slave to emotions, Elphaba said sternly. She was pulling papers from her sleeve, where she had apparently rolled them up under her arm. This is not propaganda, Your Highness. This is a well-argued theory of consciousness inclination, is what he calls it, and you will be amazed to learn of his discoveries. No right-thinking ruler can afford to ignore the implication. Then you can presume to bring me the right thinking is touching. James, said the wizard, you can drop the things where you stand, unless you prefer my approach. The lightning marionette grinned and stretched out his arms. My pet? Elphaba dropped the papers. Good, my lord, she said in a piercing, pretentious voice. I shall take you to the right thinking, for I did not. I should be obliged to join an army against you. Oh, hell, Elfie, said Glinda, then more loudly. She doesn't speak for both of us, Your Highness. I am an independent person here. Please, said Elphaba, at once hard and soft, proud and pleading. Glinda realized she had never before witnessed Elphaba wanting anything. Please, sir, the hardship on the animals is more than can be borne. It isn't just the murder of Dr. Gillikin. It's his forced reparation, this chattelizing a free beast. We must get out there and see sorrow. There is worry that the next step will be slaughter and cannibalism. This isn't merely youthful outrage. Please, sir, this is not an untrammeled emotion. What is happening is immoral. I do not listen to anyone when anyone uses the word immoral, said the wizard. In the young, it is ridiculous. In the old, it is sententious and reactionary and an early warning sign of apoplexy. In the Middle Age, who love and fear the idea of moral life, if it is hypocritical. If not immoral, then what word can I use to imply wrong, said Elphaba. Try mysterious and relax a little. The thing is, my green girlie, it is not for a girl or a student or a citizen to assess what is wrong. This is the job of leaders and why we exist. But then nothing would keep me from assassinating you, did I not know what wrong was. I don't believe in assassination. I don't even know what it means, Glinda said. Yoo-hoo! I'm going to make my leave now while I'm still alive. Wait, said the wizard. I have something to ask you. They stood still. They stood for minutes. The skeleton figured its ribs, played them like little brittle strings of a harp. Music like stones turning over his stream bed. The skeleton collected its lightning teeth from its jaws and juggled them. Then it tossed them at the seat of the throne, where they exploded in candy-colored flashes. The rain was running down in a drain on the floor, Glinda noticed. Madame Morble, said the wizard, agent provocateur and gossip, crony and companion, teacher and minister. Tell me why she sent you here. She didn't, said Elphaba. Do you even know the meaning of the word pawn? Shrieked the wizard. Do you know what resistance means? Elphaba shot back. But the wizard only laughed instead of killing them on the spot. What does she want of you? Glinda spoke up. It was about time. A decent education. For all her bombastic ways, she's a capable administrator. It can't be easy. Elphaba was staring at her with a queer, slanted look. Has she brought you in? Glinda didn't quite understand. We're only sophisters. We have only begun to specialize. I in sorcery. Elphaba in life sciences. I see, the wizard seemed to consider. And after you graduate next year, I suppose I'll go back to Frodica and get married. And you? Elphaba didn't answer. The wizard turned itself around, broke off its femurs, and pounded the seat of the throne as if it were a kettle drum. Really, this is getting ridiculous. It's all pleasure-fake showbiz, said Elphaba. She took a step up or two forward. Excuse me, Your Highness, before our time is up. The wizard turned back. Its skull was on fire, a fire not quenched by thickening curtain of rain. I shall say one last thing, the wizard ventured in a voice like a groan, a voice of one in pain. I shall quote from the Ozia, the heroic tale of ancient Oz. The girls waited. The Wizard of Oz recited. Then, hobbling like a glacier, old Cambretia rubs the naked sky till it rains with blood. She tears the skin off the sun and eats it hot. She sucks the sickle moon in her patient purse. She bears it out, a full-grown changing the tone. Shard by shard, she rearranges the world. It looks the same, she says, but it is not. It looks as they expect, but it is not. Beware whom you serve, said the Wizard of Oz. Then he was gone, and the gutters on the floor gurgled, and the candles went instantly out. There was nothing to do but retrace their steps. At the carriage, Glinda had settled in and made a little nest for them to describe the desirable forward-facing seat, guarding Elphaba's place against 3 other passengers. My sister, she lied. I am saving the seat for my sister. And how I have changed, she thought, in a year and some, from despising the colored girl to claiming she's my blood. So universally, life does not change you in ways you cannot guess. I may be the only person in Pertha Hills ever to meet a wizard. Not on my own steam, not on my initiative. Still, I was there, I did, and we're not dead. But we didn't accomplish much. Then there was Elfie, at last barreling along the paving stones with her elbows jutting and her thin bony torso swathed against the elements as usual in a cape. She came past through the crowd, battling at more refined pastures to get past. And Glinda shoved open the door. Thank heavens, I thought you'd be late, she said. The driver is eager to leave. Did you get a lunch for us? Elphaba tossed in her lap a couple of oranges, a hunk of reopened repentant cheese, and a loaf of bread that still filled the compartment with pungent dampness. This'll have to do till you stop this evening, she said. Me? Said Glinda. What do you mean, me? Have you gotten something better to do for yourself? Something worse, I expect, said Elphaba, but it needs to be done. I'm coming to say goodbye. I'm not coming back with you to Crage Hall. I'll have a place to study of my own. I will not be a part of Madame Morble's school again. No, cried Glinda. I can't let you. Nanny will eat me alive. Nesta Rose will die. Madame Morble will... Elfie, no! Tell them I kidnapped you and made you come here. They'll believe that of me, said Elphaba. She stood on the mounting tread, a fat Gillikin female dwarf, having caught the gist of the drama, shifted to the more comfortable seat next to Glinda. They needn't look for me, Glinda, for I'm not going to be findable. I'm going down. Down where? Back to Quadling Country? That would be telling, Elphaba said, but I won't lie to you, my dear. No need to lie. I don't know where I'm going. I haven't decided yet, so I wouldn't have to lie. Elphaba, get in the cab. Don't be a fool, Glinda cried. The driver was adjusting the reins and yelling at Elphaba to saw it off. You'll be right, Elphaba said. Now you're a seasoned traveler. This is just a return of a leg of a voyage you already knew. She put her face against Glinda's and kissed her. Hold out if you can, she murmured, and kissed her again. The driver clucked the reins and pitched a cry to leave. Glinda craned her head to see Elphaba's drift back toward the crowds. For all her singularity of complexion, it was astounding how quickly she became camouflaged in the ragamuffin variety of street life in the Emerald City. Or maybe it was foolish tears blurring Glinda's vision. Elphaba hadn't cried, of course. Her head had turned away quickly as she stepped down, not to hide her tears, but to soften the fact of their absence. But the sting to Glinda was real. And that is the end of In the Gillikin. And I saw the Wicked movie today, and it was awesome. Go see it. Run. Or should I say fly to the theater. Okay, bye.